Good afternoon. We are here today to brief the public on a development in the case of Evelyn Player, who was the victim of a homicide at Southern Baptist Church on November 16. First, I'd like to again express my deepest and most sincere condolences to the family of Ms. Player and all those who are affected by this crime, as well as all violent crime in our city. I'm here today with our Mayor, Mayor Brandon Scott, and our State's Attorney, Marilyn Mosby, my Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Cherie Briscoe, along with representatives from the State's Attorney's Office, our Crime Lab, and our Homicide Division. As I have said before, and will say it again, those who commit violent crime in our city will be caught and they will be held accountable. While we are all affected by all murders, the fact that this one occurred in a house of worship made it more shocking to the conscience. The Baltimore Police Department has identified and arrested a suspect for the murder of Ms. Player. 62-year-old Manzi Smith, Jr. has been taken into custody and has been charged with first-degree murder as well as several other charges. Based on evidence that was collected on the scene and processed by our crime lab, we were able to identify Mr. Smith as the suspect in this case. So I want to commend the work of our crime lab and forensics team, the entire team, and the efforts of our homicide investigators in this case who worked tirelessly and around the clock to solve this crime and to bring closure to Ms. Player's family. The Baltimore Police Department is committed to continued focus of holding violent offenders accountable in the pursuit of justice for those they victimized in our community. Simply put, if violent crime is the life you choose, then prison will certainly be the price you'll pay. At this time, I will turn it over to our mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. The murder of Evelyn Player was a senseless, heinous act and a complete tragedy. My heartfelt thoughts continue to be with her family, her church family, and the entire community. And during a holiday season filled with giving and gratitude, Mrs. Player's family was forced to endure Thanksgiving without their matriarch, without their rock, without her daughter's best friend yesterday. And they will soon again bear this anguish overlooking an empty seat on Christmas dinner. Miss Player was what we call in Baltimore a foot soldier. She loved her community, she loved her church, and she served her community with passion. And as some church folks would say, Evelyn loved like Mary and served like Martha. Yet, because of a heinous act of violence, East Baltimore lost this kind soul. And you've heard me say many, many times that Baltimore's greatest asset is our young people. But our older adults are the backbone of our city and those who shine the light in which all of us follow. And we cannot be a better Baltimore until we are all invested in protecting and keeping them as healthy and safe as possible. I cannot thank enough the women and men of the Baltimore Police Department for closing this case and beginning to help this family close the trauma and deal with the trauma that they're facing because of the tireless efforts of our wonderful crime lab unit, our wonderful detectives and homicide who I know from the family. We're in constant contact and we're working around the clock. We have successfully apprehended the individual responsible for this act. I remain committed to working with Commissioner Harrison and our State's Attorney's Office to ensure that justice will be served for any and all acts of violence in Baltimore, including this one. And while we don't know all the details of this case, I can tell you that it was not a drug-related act or something connected to violent groups. But that still matters that Ms. Player is not here. We know that the social and economic ills of the city are intertwined, and because of incidents like this, my administration is focused also on dealing with those issues that also contribute to violence. However, let me be very clear. We are also going to remain committed to going after people who are committing violent acts and holding them responsible. Just because we're going to be investing in community, investing in people, does not mean that we're going to tolerate people doing acts like this. We are going to go after you aggressively. We are going to bring you in. We are going to hand you over to our other partners in the criminal justice system, because we will not stand for people continuing to do these acts on our streets. This cannot and will not go on in Baltimore, and it cannot be our normal and something that we expect. We all must work together to close gaps that allow tragedies like this to occur. And I can't do it alone. BPD and the state's attorney can't do it alone. Our federal partners can't do it alone. We all must work together for Baltimore to be the best version of itself. When you meet a need, you touch a soul. Everyone has to understand this. Miss Evelyn understood this. My hope is that every Baltimorean, everyone under the sound of my voice, everyone that hears this, uses this moment as an opportunity to honor Miss Player and everyone that we've lost, to be a participant in making Baltimore a greater and safer city. And with that, I'll turn it over to our state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby.
Good afternoon. 2 weeks ago, our community became distraught with the news of a 69-year-old woman being senselessly killed inside a sacred house of worship. I stand before you today, along with Commissioner Harrison and Mayor Scott, my acting Chief Deputy Janice Bledsoe, Chief Counsel Erin Murphy, and members of the Baltimore Police Department, and I stand here today with gratitude, because it was only through partnership and collaboration with the Baltimore Police Department, with the mayor, that we were able to identify and ultimately arrest a person we suspect committed this heinous offense. I really want to extend my sincere appreciation to the Baltimore Police homicide detectives, to their crime lab, that worked this case, and specifically Detective Vini and my homicide division chief, Lisa Goldberg, who is my unit chief, and relentlessly worked around the clock on this investigation, leaving no stone unturned and uncovered to ensure some measure of accountability. Every day, my prosecutors work 24 hours on call with Baltimore police detectives, fighting relentlessly for families like Miss Evelyn's, who are dealing with unspeakable grief. What we know in a city with over 300 homicides a year is that every life lost to violence is an unspeakable tragedy, but the tragic killing of a senior in a church quite candidly shocked the conscience of our community, which is why we're here today. Our seniors and our babies should be off limits. So let me be clear. Although the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, my office has every intention and is committed to ensuring accountability to the fullest extent of the law. Rest assured, we will continue to fight to ensure justice on behalf of this family, who so desperately deserve it. Thank you.
So before I open it up to questions, let me just one more time. Thank you, Madam State's Attorney, Major, and to our crime lab, thank you all for an outstanding job. Job well done. And I know there are other people from the crime lab here. Thank you all. Thank you all for the work you do every single day. It is as important, if not more important, than anything we can do. So thank you all for a job well done. At this time, we'll take a few questions. Amanda?
Hello. I wanted to ask, at this point, is there any reason to believe that the suspect is involved or suspected in any other cases at this point?
Well, what we can tell you is that we know that he was arrested and convicted for crimes in the past that he served time for. At the moment, that's something that we're always working to find out, if in fact a person is connected to or responsible for other crimes. That's what this ongoing investigation should produce, whether or not he is responsible for any other crimes now or in the past.
So it looks like this suspect has a history of past sexual assault, rape allegations. Is it believed that Ms. Player was sexually assaulted?
To my knowledge, there's no information to support that this was a sexual assault.
Okay. And was this suspect being actively monitored at all by the State Department of Corrections? Do you know?
To my knowledge, he was on parole, but I don't have the answer of whether or not he was monitored.
Okay.
But he was on parole. That is a good question.
Okay.
His supervised parole, I'm being informed, ended in October of this year.
So do you know, like, was there like a lapse or anything at this point, or?
That's not information we're privy to at the moment.
Okay. And additionally, can you talk a little bit about how this suspect, how he was identified? Was there specific evidence? Was there any, also was the reward helpful at all?
Well, what we can tell you, it was very good investigative work by both homicide investigators and our scientific crime lab personnel. There was evidence collected on the scene, and through science and good work, it led to Mr. Smith, enough for us to have probable cause to get a warrant for his arrest for murder. Oh, I'm sorry, your other question was about?
The reward. What did you guys get any tips that led to his arrest?
There was information we received, but there were no tips that led to the actual arrest. It was the science based on the evidence collected that pointed directly to this perpetrator.
Like DNA evidence, can you say? DNA evidence?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you speak any more about the DNA evidence?
Well, what I don't want to do is compromise the investigation or taint the case. What we can say is that we collected evidence from the scene that was processed by the crime lab that produced positive results identifying Mr. Smith as the person who was there and the perpetrator of the crime.
Was money involved? Was there property taken?
That's ongoing in our investigation. I think these are questions that are probably best asked at trial and not here at the press conference. What we can say is that science produced evidence to make us pretty confident that Mr. Smith was the perpetrator of this crime.
Okay, when we were all out there in the neighborhood, and you all were hearing from this police department was hearing from neighbors, because that person, we understand, was from the community. How did the community help in this investigation?
Well, first of all, let me thank the community, number one, because there were many members of the community who were reaching out to detectives and providing information. It just didn't lead to this particular individual with this level of evidence. But we had a lot of cooperation, not just from the pastor and the members of Southern Baptist, but from members of the community who live in the immediate area. And so we got no resistance. We had a lot of collaboration and cooperation. But it was the science and the DNA that led to the arrest of Mr. Smith.
Would you have surveillance, and maybe you're going to say this is for trial, but surveillance video play a role?
Well, we seized surveillance video. We analyzed surveillance video. I think the answer to that is premature. That's more of a trial question.
And if you could, can you elaborate on what the crime scene investigators were able to do in this case? How they were able to lock it up?
Well, I am not the scientist. But what I will say is the evidence collected goes through a number of procedures to analyze it and to either identify or refute that somebody is a suspect. And that's why it took a while. It was more important for us to do this right than to do this fast. And their professional work and the science, the technology allowed us to have a perpetrator of this crime today.
This is the last thing, I promise. Was she targeted, or was she in the wrong place at the wrong time?
That's a question that we're asking that the investigation has to produce the answer for. We don't have that answer at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes. Do we know a motive, or did this person know Ms. Player at all? Do we know that at all?
There's no information right now to support that there was a relationship between the victim and the perpetrator.
Okay, will you be releasing a mugshot of this person?
I'm pretty sure we are.
And last question, can you spell the name so that we can have it correctly?
Manzie Smith, Smith Jr.
Okay, thank you.
That makes one more. One more.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's straightforward. When and where was the arrest made?
It was made at 4918 Crenshaw Avenue, Northeast District.
And you can't say when at this time?
Earlier yesterday,
Thank you.
yes.